What is happening, YouTube pimps? Efficient in the field, coming in hot with another video in the How to Get Off Grid Tomorrow series. We're going to talk about keeping stuff cold. Yes, we're talking about food, perishable shit. How do you keep it cold? And what are the best ways to do it? What are the ways that make the most sense? Because this guy here, I should qualify myself for the video, and that hottie over there, we did a lot of time off grid. And I was looking at it recently, it's more like 9 years as opposed to 8 years. But we've done the 4 platforms that these videos are really about. We're talking truck campers, travel trailers, and that can include fifth wheels, guys, stock trailers with the living quarters, all that kinds of stuff. Sailboats and van life. We've done all 4 of those things. And we did them both ninja camping in cities, and we also did them out in the boonies for extended periods of time. And sometimes it can become a challenge keeping your perishables cold out in the boonies for extended periods. And we've done up to months. Babe, how long was that one, our first trip in Arizona, without any reprovisioning?
That was like 3.5 months.
3.5 months. I thought it was 4 months. 3.5 months, pimps. No reprovisioning. Okay? So we have done it. You heard it from not the horse's mouth. I don't want to say that. You heard it from the wife's mouth. Okay, there it is. And by the way, she's working on her court stuff in the background, so I hope it's not distracting. And yeah, kind of a weird setting for an efficient in the field video. We're in a casino. Not really by choice, to be honest, but because she's got stuff to take care of tomorrow, and so I'm doing videos. Let's get after it, though, pimps. Now, here's the deal. Before I get started, like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep covering topics, and I'm going to get into these platforms specifically. As a matter of fact, I'd like to do some videos where you guys see me get into a couple of these platforms, actually, that me and my wife are probably going to be purchasing again. All right? And so you might want to see that. You're going to learn more about it. But let's talk about refrigeration specifically. So the goal here is to get people testing the off-grid lifestyle and also at the same time giving themselves an awesome bug-out rig. Because the channel is about prepping and survival. And, you know, my mindset, having traveled around and used all of these rigs, was these are a great way to get out in the boonies and have shelter immediately. And oftentimes it's like not just shelter immediately, it's also we have water immediately. We've got heat, you know, we've got fire. We've got all the things that you need to survive, at least for a certain period of time out there. 3.5 months, 4 months. You know what I'm saying, dudes? And it's just going to make life that much easier if you had to bail from the civilized world. So refrigeration is one of the things that can be a challenge for people that are jumping into this kind of living, because most of us are used to just having a fridge, freezer in our apartment or house, and it's there, it's plugged into a wall, and it makes things cold. You know, we don't even really know how they work. They're just doing their thing, and we pay that bill at the end of the month, and the damn thing keeps running. It's a little different when you get out there on one of these rigs, depending on what kind of system you're using. And I'm going to recommend that people that get into it, especially when it comes to truck campers and travel trailers / fifth wheels, whatever, because most of those are going to come set up with a fridge or a fridge freezer combo that runs on propane and will also run on 110. Okay? Meaning if you have it hooked up to your homeboy's house, it'll run on 110. If you're running a generator, it'll run on the 110, but as soon as you turn that stuff off, if your pilot light is lit, it will switch over and run on propane. And what we have seen in our 2 truck campers, we're going to use those as examples. That's what I've been using for these videos, as truck campers. One of them had a smaller fridge. It was a 1978 Caveman camper. I couldn't tell you how many cubic feet it was, but it was like probably a medium-sized fridge that you would see in a truck camper. And it would run for about probably 6 weeks on 5 gallons of propane. Pretty damn good. Our second truck camper, and we're talking summertime. That's important, summertime. Our second truck camper had a big fridge with a separate freezer up top, and it did about 4 weeks on 5 gallons of propane in the summertime. That should give you an idea of what you're looking at when it comes to expenses regarding propane. All right, dudes, because let's say it's $3 a gallon where you are and you're going through 5 gallons a month, you're looking at $15. Simple math. You know what I'm saying? If you're getting 6 weeks, you're looking at $15 every 6 weeks. So you guys get the idea, which is $10 a month. Okay? So very affordable. Very affordable. You just have to make sure that you're filling that propane tank before any longer trips, and that you're possibly bringing a spare 5-gallon propane tank with you, which is what we did. And we actually brought more than just 5 gallons of spare propane, okay, when making long trips like 3.5, 4 months. Okay, so you guys get the idea there. This is just a great way to jump into it because most of these rigs are set up. Let's talk about sailboats real quick when it comes to propane. It's not safe on sailboats, in my personal opinion. Propane sinks, so if you have any kind of leak in your system and you drop a cigarette and it goes onto the floor of your sailboat, it could literally blow your ass up. Okay? And we don't want you to blow your ass up. So propane on sailboats, not ideal. Most refrigeration systems that you're going to see installed on sailboats are either going to be ones that are going to run off of 12-volt system, like a 12-volt house battery bank. So the engine's running, it's just going to charge the batteries, and when the engine's not running, you need some kind of other charge, and usually that's going to be solar, but it could be like a wind turbine or something like that that's going to make sure your batteries stay charged up while that draw is occurring from that refrigeration system. Okay? There's another little trick about sailboats I'll get into real quick, actually, because a lot of people don't think about this or know about this. When you're in a sailboat, it's different from a motorboat in the sense that you have more of it beneath the waterline. On sailboats, you have something called a keel. Now, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of keels. You got swing keels, like they swing up out of the way, then they swing back down. You got fin keels. You got modified fins. You got full keels, 3/4 keels. You guys get the idea. It's a whole bunch of weight in the center line of the boat underneath it that goes down into the water. And it helps keep that boat upright because the wind is blowing on the sails so that it's a counterbalance. Well, that keel helps that boat sink more in the water, which does create drag. This is why sailboats aren't very fast. But what you get is you get a good portion of the hull. Always depends on what kind of sailboat we're talking about. But you get a portion of the hull that is literally touching the water. Now, if you're down in the Bahamas, and let's say the water's like 74 degrees or something, I don't know what it actually is down there, but I know it's not cold. Is it going to help you to put any perishables down along the water line? It's not. Because the damn water is practically the same temperature as the air. You might as well just leave that shit sitting out. But if you live off the coast of Washington or Maine, for example, in your sailboat, you now have really cold water that is just outside the hull of the sailboat, and it cools off the hull. So you can put perishables down along the hull of the boat, and it will act like refrigeration. Pretty damn cool, right, pimps? I should throw out a quick word of caution, though. If you're going to do this in that area that you're storing those foodstuffs goes down to the bilge, you can't have any paper in there. You can't have anything that could possibly get wet and run down to the bilge and clog up your bilge pump. It actually happened to us on a sailboat that we owned. It clogged up the bilge pump, and we ended up with way more water in the boat than we wanted to have in the boat. And we weren't there to deal with it. We had some friends that were watching it for us. And so, yeah, they kind of shit the bed. At any rate, guys, don't do that. Don't sink your shit. And if you're on the boat full time, it's a little bit different than leaving it. You know what I mean? Like if you take off the boat for 2 weeks and you get a whole bunch of rain and you come back, your shit might be on the bottom. We don't want that to happen. Van life is usually going to be a little bit of a different deal when it comes to refrigeration. You're usually not going to have some kind of propane fridge set up in a van. We were lucky in our first van. It was a 1979 Dodge Explorer, no E in the front, just starts with an X, camper van. It's a Class A van. It had a propane fridge freezer in it. It's freaking awesome. But a lot of these van lifers are converting box vans into like livable space. They're building a bed platform and storage and all this kinds of stuff, and they have to install their own refrigeration. I really don't think that propane is going to be the way to go in that spot. But there are a lot of 12-volt chest freezer fridges these days that are pretty damn cool. And I've heard they've just gotten even better over the last few years. Now, we haven't actually used any of those, but we've known plenty of people that use them and use them all the time, especially on sailboats. That's where we really saw it at first. And so this is a system that you can run with solar if you have the proper size house bank, battery bank. I did a video on 12 volt. Go watch it if you haven't watched it, because these things are going to draw so much power. The more you get into them, the more they're going to draw. Every time you open the door, right, you're letting some warm air in. Now, chests are actually superior to a stand-up fridge freezer. Think of the one in your house. You open the door, what happens? All the damn cold air sinks to the ground and it comes out of that fridge. So you close the door, the fridge kicks on because it has to cool the air off again. A chest, the air doesn't sink out of it because it's a chest. You know what I'm saying? You open the top. It's also a bit more of a pain in the ass to go through it, so you might have to have it open for longer because now you got to dig to the bottom of that damn thing to get to your caviar or whatever it's going to be. So, you got to weigh it, dudes. You got to weigh it. But I do feel like they are more effective and more efficient. I've heard this from people that we know that have used them for a long period of time. I've also heard that some of them will draw anywhere from 2 to 3 amps an hour, which is really not a lot, and that they'll only kick on for 5 minutes an hour. Now, here's the thing about that statement. What time of year is it? That's something that we have to consider, right, dudes? What time of year it is. If you're rocking a truck camper and you're in Arizona at high elevations, let's say in the wintertime, so there's snow on the ground part of the time, and it's below freezing at night, no problem. The highs during the daytime might only be in the 50s, 60s, if you're high enough. Then your 5 gallons of propane in, let's say, your large truck camper fridge is going to last you quite a bit longer than 4 weeks. It really is, dudes. And that's just because it's not working so hard to keep everything cold. And there's something else you need to think about. The warmer you keep the interior of your rig, the harder your fridge has to work to stay cold. In this same scenario, you're up there, high elevations in Arizona, but you got your damn catalytic heater just cranked up all the time, and you got it 85 degrees in your truck camper. For one, that 5-gallon tank of propane is not going to last long with you burning through it like that. But on the flip side, your fridge now has to work twice as hard, or 3 times, or even 4 times as hard as it would if the temp in your truck camper was like 60 degrees. How long are you going to be out there for? Think about it, dudes. I'm going to do a whole video on heat. We're going to get into like diesel furnaces and wood stoves and all kinds of shit like that, and like catalytic heaters and the ones with blowers on them and all that. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this one again. Don't forget, okay? Because you don't want to miss that. But you have to think about this stuff, especially if you're going out for a long period of time, dudes. I always tell people that this kind of off-grid life in these platforms that we're talking about, there's compromises you have to make. Yes, you're giving up certain conveniences that we have, for example, in this room. But now you can go to awesome places and you have a little mobile mini home with you. You have a tiny house, on wheels or in the water that you can take with you wherever you want to go. So the exchanges at conveniences kind of go away, but you can be out longer. You can save more money depending on what you're doing. And let's take this example here with Arizona. Let's say you got out there and you keep your catalytic heater off during the daytime, and you just wear an extra layer when you're inside. That's it. Or you just wear a light jacket over your t-shirt and some pants. So it's 60 degrees in your truck camper, but you're fine, and maybe you got a beanie on, maybe you don't, whatever, or a scarf or some shit like that. And then when the temps start dropping at night, you turn your catalytic heater on, and you keep it on the lowest setting possible. You keep it as low as possible, dude, so it only kicks on when the temps are dropping below 55. You're going to be in a sleeping bag anyways, or under your comforter and all that kinds of shit, and your fleece and your wool blankets. You don't even need to run the damn thing at night unless it's freezing balls-ass cold and you're worried that your water lines are going to freeze. That's something to think about. We'll get into more of that when we talk about heat more. Something else I'm going to get into now is, depending on the time of year, depending on where you are, you can just put food outside and it'll freeze, or it will stay cool. You do need to think about what kind of animals are out there, though, guys. I've had squirrels get into shit. I don't just put stuff on the top of my truck camper, because a lot of times that's what I'll do is open the truck camper door. Got leftovers from dinner, tinfoil it up, boom, top of the truck camper. It's gonna be nice and cold up there, good to go, man. Take it down. It might even freeze partially. Take it down, put it on the kitchen sink in the morning, and it'll be nice and thawed out and ready to go for lunch or whatever it's going to be, So you don't have to put all this stuff in your fridge. Everything you're going to keep cool doesn't necessarily have to be kept in a fridge running on propane or running on 12 volt. Now, if you're in grizzly country, obviously, let's say you're in northern Montana, do you want to be putting food on top of your truck camper? You don't want to do that, right? Because you might wake up with a nasty surprise, man. There's a grizzly bear on top of your shit. And your truck camper might not survive it. And you might not survive it. So let's not put ourselves in that situation. If you're in bear country and you're going to have food outside, you're going to do what you're always going to do. You're going to make sure you put it up in a tree where they can't get to it. All right, dudes. Let's talk about coolers. And I will tell you guys, I'm not paid by the company, but we use Yetis. We do. And here's why. We did this kind of lifestyle for almost 9 years. And when you are buying ice every single week, or you're buying ice that's going to last you for a number of weeks, but at any rate, dudes, you're running on ice, pretty regularly, I'll pay for a Yeti over a knockoff heavy-duty cooler just for that extra 5% of efficiency. Because over the course of all those years, it saved me way more money than the cost of purchasing the high-end cooler. So think about that. If you think you're going to jump into this and you're going to stick with it, spring for a good cooler that's bear-proof and all that kinds of shit. All right? If you're just going to do it for a year and test run it, or you're just going to travel the States for 2 years, it's a little different, But having ice and purchasing ice when you're going out into the boonies is definitely something that can extend your trip. All right? It really can, especially if you like ice in your drinks. A lot of times the fridge freezers in truck campers and travel trailers, they're not cold like a freezer in the house. You know what I mean? Like the one in your kitchen right now. It takes a lot longer for them to freeze ice. So, if you have 2 ice cube trays in your freezer in the truck camper, man, like that's all you got for 24 hours. You're going to have to, if you use that ice, it's going to take, 24 hours to make more ice cubes. Just so you're aware, okay? Ice packs, we've done that. Stuffed ice packs in our truck camper freezer, and then thrown them in our cooler to keep all the additional food in there cold. We were doing these trips with kids and stuff like that, so we had a lot more mouths to feed than just me and my hottie, you know what I mean? Another thing, guys, is that having a good cooler with you, if you're the hunting and fishing type, you can, obviously go out with more food. And while you're out there, let's say you empty that cooler of food and ice. Well, what you do is you keep those ice cube trays in your freezer, making ice. And then when you catch some fish or you take some game, you get it all cleaned up and you throw it in that cooler, boom, you got some ice to throw on top of it. It's not going to last a long time, but it'll keep, especially in a really good cooler, it'll keep that stuff for 2-3 days. Even longer depending on the temps outside. You know what I'm saying? And how much ice you threw in there. Let's talk about block ice real quick. I feel like this is a pretty big hack. And a lot of people don't think about this. But me and my wife, a lot of times we would go out and just take one of those Yetis and just stuff it with tons of block ice. Stacks, and you want that cooler as full as you can possibly get it with the things that you need it to have in it. You know what I'm saying? You don't want a cooler that's giant and it's only like 20% full, because everything in it, like the ice will melt faster. But if you have it full of block ice and then like one bag of bagged ice, well, you can have some drinks when you get out there and use that bag ice. And then you just start chipping up your blocks with a good knife or an ice pick. Although I would say a good knife, dudes. We want everything we bring with us in these kind of rigs to have multiple purposes. An ice pick is good for one thing: chipping ice. A knife can chip ice, and it can do a whole bunch of shit in addition to that. So go with a good knife. But you can chip up the block ice for drinks. We've even turned some of the drawers in our fridge into like freezer drawers with chunks of block ice to cool off certain things. Used them much in the same way that you would use a cooler. Let's say we still had food in our big cooler with the block ice, but I killed a rabbit or two, and we clean them and stick them in a bottom drawer, one of the drawers that have the veggies in the bottom of your fridge. Chip off some block ice, bam, good to go. They'll be nice and good and cold, and they'll get cold really fast. It depends on what season you're looking at, dudes. Like if it's hot, and I am going to tell you this, in our experience, these propane freezer fridges in the summertime can be kind of iffy. They just can be. I feel like if you get out behind them where you light the pilot on the side of the vehicle and you clean all that crap out, make sure there's no cobwebs in there and shit like that, I feel like they run a little better. Like the better that flame burns, the cooler the fridge is going to be. Also, adding some insulation can help. Like a lot of these things, they're not insulated. They're just shoved into a box in the inside of the trailer, let's say, or the truck camper. And that's it. But if you had insulation around it, if you added like some board insulation or foam insulation or even spray and insulation, although think about it, it's going to make it a bitch to pull that thing out if you ever have to pull it out, if you spray a whole bunch of foam in there. But that will help these fridges run more efficiently. All right, dudes. The last thing I want to say, and definitely not the least option on here, is when you're out in the boonies, guys, think about the ground. You could use the ground if you had to keep things cool, especially depending on what time of year it is. But even in the summertime, if you're in the right place and in a place where you can actually dig, like the ground's not too rocky and shit, you could dig a hole that's 3 feet deep, get foodstuffs down in there, or even some game, get it down deep in that hole, and have an insulated lid for it. And that shit will stay as cold as the ground temps are. And you're usually looking at anywhere between like 50 to 56 degrees, kind of depending on where you're at, if it's deep enough. So just another option for you there, the efficient in the field mind, thinking about it. But that's it, guys. That's basically the 80-20 of, fridge, freezer stuff. Babe, did I miss anything?
Nope.
Cool. There you have it. She's done it, dudes. And she is like the provisioning pimp. Straight up provisioning pimp, aren't you, honey? I'll probably have her do a video, guys, in the future, because I'm telling you, we've done trips 3.5, 4 months with no reprovisioning. And like, she is so good at getting everything we need planned for every meal for all these periods of time. It blows my mind, man. I could not do it. My brain does not work that way. I'd be like living on ramen the last 2 weeks. All right, guys, I'm going to let y'all go. Like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you have the little alert bell on so you don't miss any new videos. And check back with us every once in a while. I think this platform kind of hates me. Doesn't really want this kind of information out there. Any corporation that is going to censor your searches on their search engine the way they're doing doesn't necessarily want you to have this kind of information, dudes. All right? Check out my Patreon link in the description if you want to come help support the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.